Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to play the Holy Priest in a Mythic Plus for Season 3 of the War Within. This guide is meant to be a beginner's guide only, or, just people returning to Holy Priest. Maybe you took the season off, you took Season 2 off, you're coming back for Season 3, and you're wondering maybe what has changed with Holy Priest, and you're just needing some sort of a refresher. The goal of this guide is to hopefully give you enough information to be able to take your character to at least a +10 key. So we're going to try to include that much information in it. Again, not going to be super advanced guide, but hopefully you can get your keystone hero with this. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the guide. So let's first kind of discuss the core of Holy Priest and what sort of system they work on. Every single spec in WoW has some sort of system that they play off of. And Holy Priest is no different. So we work off a Holy Word system. So we have two spells here. We have Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctify. Sanctify is going to be a circle that kind of goes on the ground. It does some AoE healing. And then Holy Word Serenity is going to do a big burst of single target healing. So there's actually a little bit more to it than just that, though. So let's go ahead and dive into Holy Word Serenity. So perform a miracle, healing an ally for 1.5 million. Cooldowns reduced by 6 seconds when you cast heal or flash heal with a max of 2 charges. Now that is due to a passive down here called Serendipity. So flash heal and heal reduce the cooldown of your Holy Word Trinity by 6 seconds. Prayer of Healing reduces the cooldown of Holy Word Sanctify by 6 seconds. And Renew reduces Sanctify's cooldown by 2 seconds. There's also some synergy with our Holy Word Chastise. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But you work off this charge-based system, and your whole goal is to get as many charges as you possibly can of your Holy Words. So let's just say, for example, we use all of our Holy Word Trinity charges, cast on ourselves. Now we're on a 43-second cooldown. Well, we can get some CDR on that by casting flash heals. Remember, each flash heal reduces its cooldown by 6 seconds. So 4 or 5 flash heals, and the cooldown is complete now in our Holy Word Trinity. So that's kind of the goal of playing something like Holy Priest, is you're kind of weaving in and out between different spells, and depending on if you need AoE healing, you're going to focus more on your Sanctify. If you need more single target healing, you're going to focus more on your Holy Word Serenity. Now, another spell I want to talk about really quick that's really core to understand is how our Lightweaver works. So Lightweaver, flash heal is going to reduce the cast time of your next heal or prayer of healing within 20 seconds by 30% and increase its healing down by 80%. Can accumulate up to 4 charges. So that's actually something you'll need to track. And as we cast our flash heal, we can see that we are getting stacks of Lightweaver. So now that we're at 4 stacks, now we can use those stacks. You can see that we have a little 4 here by our heal spell. We want to spend those 4 stacks on our heal. And you can see we just crit for 2 million health there. Now, with that being said, you don't have to stack it to 4. That's just the max cap, right? So if we cast our heal, our stack count only goes down to 3. It doesn't consume all 4 stacks, right? So you could just simply, cast a flash heal and go into a heal. So the way that you typically play this is you alternate between the two. Is you typically flash heal, then heal, then flash heal, then heal. And you're just kind of going back and forth trying to generate Lightweaver stacks, and you're trying to get CDR on your Holy Word Serenity. Now remember that Lightweaver stack is going to reduce the cast time of our heal or prayer of healing and increase it by 18%. So that's extremely strong. And that basically makes your heal as long as a cast time as your flash heal. And one thing to note is that your heal also reduces the cooldown on your Holy Word Trinity. It's not just your flash heal, it's also your heal. Now for big AoE healing, we also have a spell called Prayer of Healing. So let's go ahead and read that out. So Prayer of Healing here, a powerful prayer that heals your target and 400 allies, perfect for Mythic Plus, right? Because you only have 5 targets and it heals 5 targets. Now, if you remember from earlier, your Prayer of Healing synergizes with your Holy Word Sanctify, right? So if we come in here and we use all of our Sanctify charges and then we start casting Prayer of Healing, you'll notice how our cooldown is now being reduced on our Sanctify. So you're kind of incentivized to use certain spells depending on the type of healing that's needed, and you're incentivized to kind of weave them. Now, another thing that's extremely important is your Prayer of Mending here. So Prayer of Mending is going to put 7 charges on you or a targeted ally, and basically it's like a boomerang that kind of bounces around between targets, and when they take damage, you heal them. A lot of your healing actually comes from Prayer of Mending. And we'll talk about this here in just a second. I guess this is probably a good time to go into our Premonition. Premonition is, I don't like it. I think Premonition is annoying to play around, but it's been in the game for a while. It seems like they're going to be sticking with it. They've stuck with this Premonition sort of charge system since the entirety of the expansion, so I guess they're going to keep it. Really hoping it doesn't make its way into Midnight, but it might. So if you're not sure what Premonition is, it's going to be at the top of the Oracle tree here, and you can see we got 3 different charges. You got Insight, Piety, and Solace. So Insight's going to reduce the cooldown of your next 3 spell casts by 9.8 seconds. So this is probably the most, I don't say it's the most important one, but it's one that you have to play around very specifically. And you can kind of cheese Insight. Let me get an Insight charge here really quick. Let me wait on this cooldown. While we're waiting on that cooldown, with Premonition of Insight, this is going to reduce the cooldown of your next 3 spell cast by 9.8 seconds. So if we go back to our Prayer of Mending, that's an 11-second cooldown. So what you can do is you can kind of get this chain reaction of Prayer of Mendings that goes out, and you can Prayer of Mending, and then you can, you can Premonition of Insight, and then you can basically cast 3 back-to-back Prayer of Mendings. And you have all these Prayer of Mendings just kind of bouncing around doing all sorts of healing. Now, Prayer of Mending is very important to Oracle because we have a lot of things that synergize with it in the Oracle tree. So if we type in Prayer of Mending here, you see all the different things that synergize with it. Especially this preventative measures. This will increase the healing of your Prayer of Mending by 40%. We have assured safety. Your Prayer of Mendings cast a power word shield at your target at 100% effectiveness. And then right here in the middle, Twin Sight, you get even more stacks of Prayer of Mending that's sent out whenever you cast one. So we have our Clairvoyance. We haven't talked about that yet, but that will give us a stack of our Piety. So we'll just go ahead and press that. And let's go ahead and use our Prayer of Mending. And you can see we can Prayer of Mending again. And we can Prayer of Mending again. And then we can Prayer of Mending again. So we basically got like 3 or 4 casts of Prayer of Mending there. Now you'll notice it only stacked up to 14 times. So you do want to kind of spread this around to other targets if you can. So I'll try to show you what this looks like on this guy right here. So we can Piety again, and we can Prayer Mending him 1, 2. We can Prayer Mending us 1, 2. And now we have 28 stacks of our Prayer Mending that can bounce around. And if you want more shields, it's probably more efficient to put a Prayer Mending on each individual person, right? Because we talked about earlier how preventive measure is going to put a shield on each person that you target and cast Prayer Mending on. Excuse me, I apologize. That's assured safety. So assured safety is what's actually putting that shield on. You also got other things down here. You see all the different things here that kind of buff up our Prayer of Mending. It's just really strong spell. And it is very often overlooked. So I just kind of wanted to drill that in. Let's go ahead and go back to our Premonition here. So we talked about how to play around Insight. Now we have Premonition of Piety. So increases the healing done by 28%, causes 90% of overhealing on players to be redistributed. So this is another one that you can kind of cheese whenever Piety comes up. So whenever Piety's ready to go, I think we're on that one right now. So whenever that's ready, I'll just read it again because it's kind of confusing. Increases your healing done by 20% and causes 98% of overhealing on players. So what you can do is kind of cheese this, and all of your overhealing is going to be redistributed essentially. So you can funnel a ton of healing into one target, and they can kind of be like a seedling, and basically all that healing is redistributed as an AoE heal to the party around you. So for example, let's say I know a big boss mechanic's about to come up. I know it's going to be a lot of AoE healing that's needed. I can go ahead and Piety myself, and I can put Guardian Spirit on myself and pump Serenities into myself. And that's going to just put a ton of group AoE healing. So whenever Piety's up, you typically want to pair that with another cooldown. I recommend putting Guardian Spirit on yourself and just spamming single target healing on yourself. You can also pair this with your Apotheosis. We haven't talked about that yet. We haven't talked about Guardian Spirit yet either. But you can also take this with Divine Hymn as well. That's a pretty powerful combo. So just to give you kind of an idea of how that works, there's a lot of different combos you can do with it. And the last one here is going to be Solace. So you'll probably want to dump this on your tank in most scenarios, but you'll just kind of have to play it by ear. There could be a situation where you have an ally taking a big bleed, a big poison dot. It's just going to put a big shield on the target. So nothing too crazy going on there, but it is something you need to pay attention to, and this can really save you in a lot of clutch scenarios. And then there's actually a secret 4th charge of our Premonition. It's called Clairvoyance down here at the bottom, and Clairvoyance is like your ascended form, and it's essentially all 3 of these at the same time. So one thing to remember is when you are using your clairvoyance charge, go ahead and make sure that you're getting all those prayer of mendings out. It's very important. Make sure not to prayer of mending before you clairvoyance. You want to clairvoyance before you cast prayer of mending to get that CDR. And note that first prayer of mending that you send out is also going to have solace on it. So you're going to be putting a shield on that first target. So you get a huge shield, a huge CDR on your prayer of mending, and then also piety. After you throw out your prayer of mendings, essentially just spam single target healing on yourself. If you want more information on like a good weak hour for this, just go to my channel. I think I made like 1 or 2 videos on Premonition. There's a good weak hour out there that you can set up that will pop up and it'll say, hey, this is the shield. Hey, this is the CDR. Hey, this is the overhealing. And it's very obvious, which charge that you're on, because it's kind of hard to tell. All these symbols look very, very similar to each other when it's just a tiny symbol on your bar. Okay, I always hate talking about that spell. Moving on. Let's go ahead and get into cooldowns now. So we have our Apotheosis. This is going to be, in my opinion, your strongest cooldown. So it's a 2-minute cooldown. So gain a charge of holy words and enter a pure holy form for 20 seconds, increasing the cooldown reduction on your holy words by 200%. So instead of being 6 seconds of CDR, we're getting 12 seconds of CDR through our serendipity and reducing their cost by 50%. So this is good to use on any tough trash. I would say just go ahead and send this. Like if you know a tough pack is coming up, go ahead and send this, because you want that mana, like all the mana that you're saving from the spell really adds up at the end of the dungeon. If you get 10 casts of this in, 10, 15 casts of this is going to save a ton of mana towards the end of the dungeon. So if you know that high damage is coming up, feel free to send it. Do not sit on this for 5 or 6 minutes. We also have our Guardian Spirit that we talked about earlier. Remember, you want to use this with your piety, and we can just kind of cast this on ourselves, and we can just do a ton of single target healing. You see we get these wings now, and all that healing that we're doing on ourselves is going to be redistributed out to our allies during piety. But essentially, that just increases the healing received to the target by 60%. And also, this is a built-in battle res, so if they do die while Guardian Spirit is up, they can be-res themselves. Up next, we also have our Power Infusion. So Power Infusion on a 2-minute cooldown is going to increase your haste by 20%. You always want to make sure that you're Power infusing somebody else due to Twin of the Sun Priestess here. You can Power Word an ally, and you also get the effect of Power Infusion. So if you Power Infusion an ally, you also get that effect. Ellesmere has a weak hour for this that will tell you who to Power Infuse, who's going to be the most efficient based on the cooldowns that they use, and it'll kind of make your UI glow, and it'll say, hey, this guy just uses big cooldowns, go ahead and PI this guy. So highly recommend to get some sort of weak hour to track that. Another spell I'm going to talk about, we're about done here. We have our Symbol of Hope. Symbol of Hope is something you want to use on cooldown. Let me bring it up here. Not just for the mana that it regenerates. So it does regenerate a little bit of mana, but it also recovers the cooldowns of a major defensive ability of one of your allies. And there's a list out there of exactly which cooldowns that this reduces, but you're gonna make sure that you're using this pretty often as well. Typically, I just use it, for like the mana. If I get below like 70% mana, I'll just go ahead and pop this, kind of top myself off, and as an added benefit, get some of that CDR reduction from your allies. And then last spell I'm gonna talk about here is your Holy Word Chastise. So I actually have a macro for this that I've put in some of my older guides in the past. So this is gonna Holy Fire, then Holy Word Chastise, then Holy Fire, Holy Fire. So Holy Word Chastise actually resets the cooldown of your Holy Fire, and that is due to something called Imperial Blaze here. So Holy Word Chastise causes your next 2 casts of Holy Fire to be instant, cost no mana, and incur no cooldown. So if we see it here, Holy Fire is just a cast sequence, you reset at 10, Holy Fire, Holy Word Chastise, then 2 Holy Fires behind it. I'll kind of show you guys how that works. So it's a Holy Fire, Chastise, then 2 instant cast Holy Fires behind that, and that's going to do some big damage on right on the initial pull in a Mythic Plus dungeon. A lot of times you'll actually burst more than a DPS with that. And you see here, if you do not have your Holy Word Chastise off cooldown, it will just reset itself after 10 seconds. So here in just a couple seconds, it'll reset back to your Holy Fire, which makes sense because Holy Fire has a 10-second cooldown by itself, right? So that's kind of that macro if you want to use it. And the final thing I'll talk about here is our Shadow Fiend. So our Shadow Fiend, you only really use it. There's not much to it. You only really use it for mana regeneration. So just to read it out, 3-minute cooldown generates 0.5% mana each time the Shadow Fiend attacks. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about our healing priority now. So kind of like we talked about earlier, we want to be using this Premonition of Insight charges with our Prayer Mending. You want to get 2 14 stacks out, and you want those Prayer Mendings bouncing around as much as you possibly can. Or even better, you could also go 4 7 stacks through Assured Safety. Each person you target with Prayer Mending is going to get that big shield. So, try to spread that out as much as you possibly can. But next, we want to make sure that we're using our Premonition of Piety charges for big AoE healing. So you can pull up a lot of stacks of a Lightweaver, and you can just basically spam heal on yourself, and you can back that up with like a Holy Word Serenity. But you can also pair that with like an Apotheosis or a Guardian Spirit on yourself and just do a ton of AoE healing. Resonant Words is actually something that we did not talk about yet. So Resonant Words is going to be down here in your tree. And this is just going to incentivize you not to be using Holy Words back to back. And again, kind of weaving through your different spells. Because after you cast a Holy Word spell, it's going to increase your next Flash Heal, Prayer of Healing, or Power Word Life by 40%. So just remember, you're kind of playing this in like a triage, right? You're kind of going like Holy Word Serenity, Flash Heal, back to Holy Word Serenity, and then alternating between heal and Flash Heal from there. Up next, we have our Premonition of Solace, which is just going to be a shield that you just kind of throw out if somebody has a big dot on them. If the tank is in trouble, throw it on them. Be careful in Clairvoyance, because whoever you throw that first Premonition out on is essentially going to get that Premonition of Solace on them. From here, you can just kind of go back and forth between Sanctify or Holy Word Serenity for AoE healing, and it depends. Holy Word Sanctify is kind of hard to hit if you have a bunch of like range DPS that are all spread out. So a lot of times in Mythic Plus, I find myself using Holy Word Serenity more. But if you are running all melee and you get like a 4 or 5 stack right on the boss, and you could stack in there tight with them, make sure that you're using Sanctify over Serenity. But if it's 3 or less, I'm typically relying a little bit more on Serenity and Sanctify. Obviously, step 5, keep that Prayer Mending on cooldown. It gives us so many bonuses and just boost our overall healing. We can also cast Renew. So this is something I did not cover either. Renew is actually quite a bit stronger. It's quite a bit stronger than it has been in the past. We have Empowered Renew. So Renew reduces the cooldown of Sanctify by an additional 6 seconds and heals for 120% more when cast. But now it has a 12-second cooldown, right? So you want to make sure that, let me just bring in all my bars here. I'll just show you. You want to make sure that you're casting Renew. It just provides a heal over time effect, and you're casting that on cooldown and getting that ticking. Again, it heals for 120% more now. So Holy Priest is actually running Renew, and there's been many seasons where we did not run Renew in the past. So just kind of keep that in mind. We are running it now. Up next, kind of like we said earlier, use that Apotheosis to save mana. Do not sit on this for too long. I recommend using this at the start of like a really hard pack that before every boss, there's at least 1 or 2 hard packs. That's where I'm using Apotheosis the most. And you kind of want to save this. If you can kind of plan this, you want to have this up for bosses as well, if you can. And this is another thing we didn't talk about. From Apotheosis, you'll get this buff called Divinity. That's just going to buff your next 3 heals or Prayer of Healings. So make sure that you're using those stacks. Pretty passive. You don't have to worry about it too much. And then, you can just switch between Prayer of Healing for AoE or Healing for single target. And then 8 and 9, step 8, use Flash Heal to build up Lightweaver stacks. So you want to use those Lightweaver stacks. Do not cast Heal without a Lightweaver stack, and just alternate between the two. Same story for Prayer of Healing here. And then we also want to use our Symbol of Hope as much as we possibly can. That's going to give us CDR on our Desperate Prayer cooldown. I don't think we talked about that, but that is right here. Increase the maximum health by 40% for 10 seconds and instantly heals you for that amount. So we'll just cast here 1 minute cooldown, and then when we Symbol of Hope, you can see we basically got 30 seconds reduced cooldown on it. So that's Holy Priest in a nutshell. If you take this information and apply it, you should be able to time a 10. Simple as that. So Hopefully this helps somebody out there. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing to the channel. See you in the next one.